Since we're doing an actual review of Part of Romeo and Juliet today, I'm going to definitely wait a few minutes. Hope a few more people come in. We've been getting like 5 or 6 at least. So. Riley Havlin spotting. What's up, Riley? Good to see you. Hey, Logan. Riley's like on the floor out in the hall. Nice clean floor. Nice and comfy. And we're going to wait 2 or 3 more minutes because there's a couple other people who've been showing up that I'm hoping to get here. See so. Hey, Issa, glad you made it. Any of you guys been outside today in the stadium or otherwise? You can unmute, you know, you can talk. What's up? It is really windy out there and it's getting windier. So if you walk home, make sure, maybe try to stay away from really old big trees. It's gonna be kind of nuts out there. One more minute. Okay, gonna start. What do we have here today? Well, you have a new Newzilla article, okay? Make sure to access today's article, give it a close read, complete that 4-question quiz as usual. It's our nonfiction practice, very important. Grammar, lesson 5's due tomorrow. Let's see. Oh, due tomorrow. I need to change that. That should say tonight. Get sloppy. Change that right here and now. Okay, so if you haven't already done grammar lesson 5, make sure and do that sometime today or tonight. Then the vocab, the lessons 1 through 3 review, which is actually a little bit less work, but it's kind of prepping us for doing a test next week. That is due tomorrow night. All right, so the big thing that was due last night was the rest of Act 1. You guys had plenty of time to do that. I hope you got it in. scenes 3 through 5 due last night has been checked. If anybody has done it since then or still does it, then make sure and email me to alert me so I give you partial credit. So we're going to review. Glad you're here for that, even if it's not all that many of you. And Act 2 is posted today. I did it just before class, and that should be completed by Monday next week. That is the entirety of Act 2, okay? So we split Act 1 into 2 parts, okay? But Act 2, you're doing the whole thing all at once, which means you cannot wait until Monday night to read the whole thing. There's no way you're going to do that, okay? Think about reading a scene or 2 each day between now and Monday night, and then it won't be that much. You know, you use the audio, it gets you through it. You're not just going to be sitting there staring at the page. I've been meaning to talk to you about a film version you can watch too, and I would think you would certainly be interested. It kind of helps you, you know, visualize and see it as well as hearing the dialogue that's already familiar. So maybe take a look at that tomorrow, since we won't have as much to do. Okay, so classwork here. Let's go to that study guide that we're going over today. There's a mistake on the last question, which Logan pointed out, and I should have posted. I didn't get around to it. All right, now, first thing to see here was when we're at the party, this is the key passage that you guys, for the most part, are not doing. I got some chats going on here. You spelled today wrong. Well, I can guarantee you guys that was a typo. It was not a misspelling, but thank you for pointing that out. Who was that, Cammie? Nice one, Cammie. Thank you. Mr. Cooney doesn't know how to spell today. What kind of English teacher is that? All right, so Romeo says to Serviman, what lady is that which doth enrich the hand of yonder knight? Now we know, kind of dramatic irony there, that it's Juliet, right? But obviously Romeo, he doesn't even know who she is then, right? He's still thinking about Rosalind until he sees her, and this is that moment of love at first sight. The servant says, I know not, sir, right? A little bit of irony there, because if he would have known and he would have told Romeo that she's a member of the Capulets, a family member of the Capulets, then maybe Romeo would have backed off, but he doesn't know. And instead, he immediately says this kind of to himself. It's kind of a monologue. He says, oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night, like a rich jewel in an Ethiop's ear, beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. So shows a snowy dove trooping with crows, as yonder lady over her fellows shows. Hear all the rhyme? The measure done, I'll watch her places stand, and touching hers make blessed my rude hand. Did my heart love till now? Like, did I think I knew what love was with Rosalind? No, forswear it, forget it. For I never saw true beauty till this night. So in the previous section, Romeo has agreed to attend the party with Benvolio, but vowed he would only have eyes for Rosalind. And yet, in this passage, his first words of the party, he falls for another girl, Juliet, as it turns out, almost immediately, describing her beauty in poetic detail and claiming that he's never seen real beauty until this very moment. And he says it so poetically, right, that we almost get carried away with what he says and forget to think to ourselves, wait a minute, right? Like, hold on a second here. In these lines from Act 1, Scene 5, you can infer. That means kind of read between the lines. What can you infer about Romeo's character and what he asks the servant from what he observes about the young woman? How does his response to her compare to his feelings for Rosalind? What point do you think Shakespeare is making about love? So that was the question. Now, I didn't get a lot of people to respond to this. I don't know that anybody here did. Coming back to the grid. What do you guys think of what he does there? Your own opinion. He sees his girl from across the room and says this poetic stuff, and he forgets about Rosalind, and he's been crying over for weeks. What do you think about that? You can think he's stupid if you want, but say something. Unmute yourselves and say something so I can give you participation. Speaking of that, I'm going to take attendance while you're thinking about actually saying something. Got Riley, Ethan, Cammie, and Gibbons. That make total sense to you guys? You do the same thing? Probably not, right? So how does that make you feel about Romeo, and what might Shakespeare be saying about young people being in love or thinking they're being in love? That what can they maybe tend to do sometimes? How about if I put it that way? Can you tell me that? He wasn't all that stupid because after she loved him back because Rosaline was too young. We don't know that Rosaline was necessarily too young, but you're right in that it does make sense eventually that she kind of returns his affections at the party and they start conversing and stuff. But at this point, they have not talked yet. Okay. So for him to say all that, what a lot of people think from that is that maybe Shakespeare, right from the get-go, is pointing out how people can get younger people, such as your age, even a little older, can get carried away with the idea of love to the extent that they might really overshoot the mark, like get just like silly about it and get carried, that maybe they get more carried away with the idea than it actually is the person. I mean, how could it be the person? He doesn't know her yet, right? So as much as that idea of love at first sight seems romantic, it seems kind of fun and exciting, is Shakespeare really saying this is like the ideal love right here? I don't know what he necessarily does. There's no one right answer, but I think he's kind of pointing out it's how it's almost kind of it's funny, it's almost kind of ridiculous, but unfortunately it's also going to be kind of dangerous, right? Because Tybalt spots him and they are and it's dangerous because they're from enemy families and there's going to be people who aren't happy about that, right? All right, let's go back to the study guide here and actually go through the questions that you did do. So in Act 1, Scene 3, Juliet's mother asks how she feels about marriage. What is Juliet's response? And how does the nurse misunderstand her answer? Support your answer with evidence from the text. Okay, that's kind of a tricky question. I'll be really impressed if one of you guys gets that. Okay. Have you guys gone, I should have told you before, I mean, you should know this, but have you gone back in and opened the document that has your assignment in it so you can look at what you wrote, assuming that you finished this? I don't know whether all of you did, but okay, you should be looking at what you wrote so you can share. Okay, did anybody get this one? How does the nurse misinterpret Juliet's reaction to the mother's request about whether she's interested in marrying Paris? It's where she says, if I look to like, if looking liking moved, but no more strength will dart mine eye than you give strength to make it fly, I think is what she says. So what she's trying to say is, I don't really know what's going on here. I'm kind of young. I'm not sure what to think about this. But the nurse interprets what she says as what? That she is, what does the nurse want her to be about Paris? Can you tell me that? Somebody speak, for God's sake. Ethan, you look like you're going to say something, but you're not unmuting yourself. What does the nurse want Juliet to say that she accidentally thinks that she means? I'm thinking. Gotcha. Yeah, you can always put answers in chat, guys, if you don't want to speak. I want you to speak. I don't want to be the only one talking here. Nope, nothing. The nurse wants Juliet to marry Paris, so she interprets Juliet's words as saying, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. And now the nurse is getting carried away and thinking, oh, great, she's going to marry Paris. Everything's cool. All right. Okay, that's what we're looking for there. Back to the next question. Number 2, in Act 1, Scene 4, how does Romeo use a pun to explain his decision not to dance at the party? Now, if you looked over your drama terms, a pun is when you use one word with 2 different meanings, or 2 different words that sound the same but have different spellings and different meanings to make a play on words. It's not always a ha-ha funny joke. Sometimes it's just cleverness, right, to make a point. What word does Romeo use that has 2 different spellings but sounds the same to explain why he doesn't want to dance at the party? Did anybody get that? Can you just tell me the word that he uses to make a pun? Put it in the chat if you don't want to say it. Nobody got it? If you got it and you're not talking, that would be kind of tragic. He says, you have nimble, I'm thinking I have it, but I don't. What do you mean you have it, but you don't have it? What does that mean? You have nimble souls, S-O-L-E-S, that enable you to dance, right? Nimble means like active, like you're light, right? S-O-L-E-S, as in shoe soles, right? But then he says, I have a soul, S-O-U-L, of lead, right? Which holds me to the ground. He's being figurative there, right? He's saying you're happy, you have nimble souls, you can hop up and down and go have a good time, but I'm so sad, because of Rosaline, everything else that's going on, all the fighting, that I have a soul of lead, figuratively heavy, right? Lead is a heavy metal, and soul, as in his heart, is sunk and heavy, okay? All right, so that's what we're looking for there. Let's go to the next one. Number 3, after Romeo tells his friends about a troubling dream he had, how does Mercutio respond? What is Mercutio's opinion of dreams? Support your answer. That is from the text. Mercutio is an amusing and an almost disturbing character. So he's a guy who like talks and talks and talks and talks, and he seems really down on Romeo's whole idea of love and kind of makes fun of him. Says, quit getting so beaten down by love, right? They're on their way to the party, they're drinking wine, they're having a good time in the street, they're sneaking into this party they're not supposed to go to because it's a Capulet party and they're Montagues, except for Mercutio, who's the prince's nephew, but he hangs out with the Montagues. And I forgot the wording of the question. Let me go back to it again. After Romeo tells his friends about a troubling dream that he had, he fears some consequences kind of hanging on the stars, like some kind of fate is closing in on him. How does Mercutio respond? Well, he goes into a long speech about where dreams come from. And he tells this long story about a character named Queen Mab, okay? It's like a myth about the person who comes to you in the middle of the night and brings you dreams. And then Mercutio kind of accidentally starts talking about the troubling dreams that he has, and like he has like nightmares. Yeah. He talks about a fairy, I think. Yes, Queen Mab is like a fairy. Good. And then he gets carried away to the point where he's like almost like screaming in the street, and Romeo has to say, hey, calm down. Thou talkst of nothing. You're not talking about anything here. Dreams, vain fantasy, right? And then Mercutio says, yeah. It's just a bunch of made up stuff. But it's kind of weird. Like, sometimes the people who joke all the time, all they do is joke. Maybe somebody like this. Sometimes those are the people who are kind of unstable underneath, or maybe sad or depressed or something, and they cover it up by using humor all the time. That's maybe what Mercutio is about. And maybe that ties in with him being so dismissive of Romeo's, love problems, right? Maybe he's inexperienced or not sure of himself in that whole department, right? Okay. To the next question. Why is it ironic that Romeo compares Juliet to a snowy dove trooping with crows when he first sees her at the party? Okay, ironic means kind of the opposite of what you'd expect, or something very different from what you'd expect. Well, why is it kind of ironic that, not knowing who Juliet is, that he sees her as a snowy dove trooping with crows, that she's better than anybody else? Well, we know, even though he doesn't at that point, you can answer this, surely, that Juliet is actually what? Who is she? That he doesn't know, that we do know. So it's dramatic irony too. Throw it in the chat or speak it. His enemy, right? The family they were fighting with, the Capulets. Very good. Okay, a couple of you got that. I need to be marking pluses for you guys. Yeah, and it also echoes something that was said before. What previous statement in scene 2 does this line recall? Do you remember someone else saying something, I'll show your dove to be a crow? Who said that to Romeo before, trying to get him to forget about something or someone? He says, go out and look at all these other women and you'll think your dove, Rosaline, a crow, someone ugly. Benvolio is his cousin who was telling him that. Yes, right. Benvolio told him that. Good. Excellent, Cami, thanks. So it's almost kind of eerie, right? Because Romeo almost kind of echoes that line in his head that Benvolio said, subconsciously saying it, because he's heard that wording before from Benvolio. And Benvolio was right? He looks at someone else and forgets about Rosaline. By the end of Act 1, why does Romeo ask? That is a mistake there that I think Logan pointed out. Obviously, Romeo doesn't have a nurse. That's Juliet. So hopefully you figured that out. By the end of Act 1, why does Juliet ask her nurse about many other men before she asks about Romeo? That's kind of an inferential question where we have to kind of figure that out on her own. Because what does Juliet not want to let the nurse know? She just asks, she doesn't care about all those other guys, right? She's just asking about all of them because what's she trying to hide from the nurse? Okay, she's trying to hide from the nurse. Maybe she suspects that he's actually a Montague kind of figures it out, right? They're kind of being careless with their masks and stuff, but she wants to know exactly who he is, because they haven't even really exchanged much information or anything other than just kind of talking and kissing off to the side of this party. But he finds out, and she finds out at the very end, that each other is from the enemy family. And now it's too late, right? Because they've already had love at first sight. We can't do anything about it, can they? No. Now, if it were you, what would you do? You'd be like, oh, I'm out, right? Common sense, but easy for us to say, right? He is supposedly, purportedly, fallen in love at first sight, and so he can't do anything about it. He's worried that he won't be able to do anything about it. So we will see where it goes from there. That is the last question. Stop share. And then let me just kind of pop over to, actually, let me get back here, come out of that screen and go over to your new assignment. Okay, so if the grammar is due tomorrow, but also under classwork, there's your new assignment, Romeo and Juliet, Act 2. Here you'll find the study guide, text link, and audio link for Act 2 in its entirety. Since this is a whole act altogether, instead of dividing into 2 parts like Act 1, you need to pace yourself. There's 6 scenes. It sounds like a lot, but the last few scenes are all really short. So think about reading 1 or 2 per day between now and the due date. If you need to answer the discussion and don't forget, you need to answer the discussion prompt like I kind of did for you here on the key passage in order to receive full credit. Put it anywhere as long as it's labeled. I'll give you credit. I'm real flexible with what this looks like. But most of you are not doing that, okay? Very few people are doing that. So I want to give you full credit. Most people are not getting full credit. That is it. You guys all good? Good to see a new face or two. You guys keep coming. I'd like to build this up so we have more of a full class here. Keep coming. Gave you pluses for your presence, even if you didn't talk. Okay? Bye-bye.